If one had to choose a place in America that could most vividly illustrate the shape of hell, it would be Los Angeles in 2025. Once dubbed the symbol of the American dream, Los Angeles is now sinking into a chaotic crisis. The City of Angels is no longer the promised land. It has become the final refuge of decaying dreams, where tens of thousands of people linger on the sidewalks, huddle in cars, or curl up under bridges in search of a peaceful night's sleep. In this documentary, we will turn our hearts and eyes to Los Angeles, a city that was once a symbol of hope, now transforming into a real-life ghost town. A city where the American dream is shattered bit by bit, in the weary gaze of forgotten residents. A place where even the police no longer dare to step in. There was a time when Los Angeles was the final destination for unfulfilled dreams. From the arid valleys of Arizona, from the impoverished towns of the Midwest, people flocked here not just to find jobs, but to regain the belief that their lives would improve if they tried hard enough. The city of eternal sunshine, of cinema and opportunity, was once the brightest symbol of an America that never stopped moving forward. However, that image, now, only exists in the memories of a generation that has lived long enough to witness both the glory and the fracture. Los Angeles today is no longer the place where dreams begin. It is becoming the final destination where the American dreams come to an end. The media has succeeded in painting a picture of a perfect film capital down to the smallest detail. But if you observe long enough, you will see that hidden beneath that magnificent beauty is a reality that no one dares to face. Behind the sparkling lights from the blue sea in Santa Monica or the dazzling lights on Sunset Boulevard, there exists a layer of people forgotten by society. They move through subway stations, set up tents on sidewalks, and compete for every bench in the park. No one remembers their names. They are only known by the name zombie citizens, people who have no place to go back to and no dreams to aspire to. According to the latest statistics, Los Angeles is recording more than 75,000 people without stable housing, a number almost the highest in the entire United States. But that number is just the tip of the iceberg, as thousands of others are living in RVs, in unofficial shelters, unrecorded in any support system. Behind each of those soulless numbers are thousands of untold stories. There are those who once served in the military, paid taxes their whole lives, and raised 2 or 3 children. They have spent their entire lives pursuing the American dream, but now that dream leads them to cold streets, under the dim yellow lights, where a once vibrant city now has no place for them. If even in Los Angeles, the symbol of hope and opportunity, that dream is gradually crumbling, then is there any city strong enough to embrace and preserve dreams that have barely begun to bloom before they fade away? What do you think is the worst thing for a fish? Being thrown onto the shore and watching the ocean, where it belongs, slowly drift away into despair. In Venice Beach, Los Angeles, there are hundreds of people living in that exact paradox. They were born to swim in the sea of normal life, to have a home, a job, a community. But then, one by one, they are washed ashore like homeless fish stranded, living in the limbo between sand and wind, just a few steps away from society, yet as if they belong to a completely different world. Dakota, a homeless woman in Venice, shares her harsh life. She lost her identification documents, making it impossible to apply for assistance, travel, or find a job. Every day is a struggle for survival, from begging for money, finding food, to staying safe in a street environment with many unspoken rules.
You know, like there's some days that I just don't want to wake up because, I wake up and I'm constantly reminded my kids aren't here. I'm homeless, I don't have any food.
Having gone through past traumas, every morning for Dakota is a pain because her children are no longer by her side. Although Dakota tries to adapt, she still longs for a home with a lock, a stable job, and to live with her children. Dakota is just one of the thousands of homeless fish, out there. Her presence on the streets is the most vivid testament that homelessness is no longer a story of laziness. Because the truth is that many people fall into this situation due to tragic circumstances. They drift everywhere, struggling to survive and lost on the path to rediscovering themselves. According to the latest report, up to 69.5% of the homeless in Los Angeles currently live completely outdoors, without access to any form of official shelter. In areas like Venice Beach or Skid Row, shelters are always full, forcing hundreds of people each night to find some nook in the city to quietly hide. It is ironic that in a city where Hollywood film studios use the most advanced virtual reality technology, where artificial intelligence is nurtured just a few blocks away from the brightly lit boulevards, the government and society seem powerless to restore the most basic elements of life to these flesh and blood individuals. They are like stranded fish, born to belong to the ocean, but now only floundering in despair amidst the dusty desert of a civilization engrossed in technology and speed. And perhaps the most haunting thing is that none of us can be sure that tomorrow, the person who will have to search for a patch of sand to sleep on won't be ourselves or a family member. If even the land no longer has a place for a person, then where will the American dream finally reside? What do you think about this? And if tomorrow your life suddenly goes off beat, how will you manage? Stay tuned. Because what awaits you in Skid Row, a place where even the police sometimes hesitate to enter, can make you look at this entire society with completely different eyes. Have you ever imagined that in one of the wealthiest cities in America, there exists a place where even the police hesitate to step in? A place where the lights are not bright enough to dispel the musty smell of despair? In Los Angeles, a name once synonymous with luxury, opportunity, and the American dream. It is precisely there that we are now witnessing the most vivid manifestation of a collective nightmare called Skid Row. Stretching over 50 blocks right in the heart of downtown, Skid Row is not an improvised slum. It is the product of oppressive policies, a broken support system, and a society that is increasingly indifferent to its own people. They call this place the forbidden zone of angels, where dreams once began, but now only empty gazes and the sound of shattered hope remain. With over 4,400 homeless people concentrated in an area of less than 4 square miles, Skid Row is not just the hotspot of Los Angeles. It is a symbol of a nation struggling to retain compassion in its most magnificent cities. They set up tents with tarps and scraps of fabric, living crowded among alleys filled with trash, while just a few minutes' drive away are million-dollar mansions and the bustling Hollywood film studios. There is something too contradictory, too bitter. When superhero movies are being produced just a few blocks away, here, no one can save anyone. The police were ordered to limit their intervention, while humanitarian organizations were unable to meet even the most basic needs: clean water, food, or a dry blanket for the cold night. Some local residents once said, "We no longer know who our neighbors are." Every week, a new face appears living on the sidewalk. And every month, another family disappears from the neighborhood because they can no longer afford the rent. They don't hate the homeless. They just feel powerless because individual efforts cannot combat a social machine that is running off course. The frightening thing is not that Skid Row is growing larger every day, but Skid Row is becoming a miniature model of the future. When housing prices soar beyond incomes, when inflation robs people of their daily hot meals, and when indifference is disguised under the name of urban management, the price to pay is no longer found in statistics, but etched on the faces of every abandoned person in the heart of the city. Los Angeles used to be the promised land, but if a city that once represented the American dream is becoming a graveyard for lost souls, then who will be the next? And if one day you, or a loved one, are pushed out of your home due to an unexpected event, is there still a place generous enough to welcome you back? If you are living near the Skid Row, Venice, or Echo Park areas, where tents once stood as the last evidence of survival, and you have witnessed a friend or a loved one being forced to leave because of non-compliance, try looking into independent legal centers or visit the LA Homeless Services Authority. Los Angeles is now wearing a different face. No longer the city of lights and opportunities, no longer the picturesque beaches or the glitzy walk of fame in travel brochures. Instead, the scene in this city now resembles something out of a post-apocalyptic movie. The streets are filled with makeshift tents made of plastic tarps, the smell of garbage mingling with the scent of despair, along with the lost gazes of people who once had a home, once had a life like ours. According to the latest statistics, there are currently over 75,000 homeless people living in Los Angeles, a record high number, and there are still no signs of it stopping. But what is even more heartbreaking is that among them, there are more than 7,500 minors. The children do not have beds to sleep in, no nutritious meals to eat, no place to call home. They are not just a part of the statistics, they are a vivid warning about a city losing its own future. But those numbers still don't tell the whole story, because this is no longer just an issue to be solved. It has become a part of the landscape, like a new layer of skin covering the city. From Skid Row to Venice, from Echo Park to Hollywood, rows of tents have sprung up like an underground architecture, existing parallel to office buildings and upscale shopping areas. And if a city like Los Angeles can also fall, then is your city, the one you think is safe, really standing firm against this wave of homelessness crisis? Don't take your eyes off the video, because what shocks many people even more is that the faces of this social issue are teachers, nurses, Uber drivers, or even the friendly neighbor right next to your house. The homelessness crisis has come closer to you than you think. This crisis is no longer limited to long-term homeless individuals or those without income. It has infiltrated the middle class, who once had stable jobs, insurance, and were voters and taxpayers. But just one event occurs: job loss, illness, skyrocketing rent. And within a few months they fall from their homes to park benches. From a locked apartment to a dark corner of the street, where only rats and loneliness remain as companions. A single mother who used to be a nurse at a nursing home now lives in a makeshift tent in MacArthur Park. A retired teacher who once had a small house in Silver Lake now relies on public restrooms and food aid bags to get by. These are not strangers or someone different from us. They are us, only different in that life has pushed them off the safety line. The city is still trying to respond. A portion of the nearly $1.3 billion budget has been allocated this year for homelessness programs. But what people see is that tents are still popping up. The police still patrol every day. But sometimes even the security officers don't know what else to do except turn a blind eye. A retired LAPD officer once said in an interview, "Skid Row is not like typical crime areas. It is the collapse of a structure that no one dares to look directly at. There is no longer right or wrong. Only survival remains." Silence in this case is not a lack of responsibility, but rather an impotence in the face of a tsunami that is drowning everything: homes, dreams, social trust, and above all, humanity itself. What is most terrifying right now is not just the scale, but the speed. The homelessness situation in Los Angeles is no longer progressing year by year, but week by week. Every month, hundreds of new tents spring up. Public services are deteriorating, aging infrastructure. And amidst the massive concrete blocks of a city that was once the capital of technology and entertainment, people are gradually being pushed out of the very society they once built. You may not live in Los Angeles, but have you ever seen a street corner where images both strange and heartbreakingly familiar began to appear? If Los Angeles were a map, there would be areas that people inadvertently or deliberately overlook when painting their dreams. There are areas whose names seem to have nothing in common. Now they are the dark spots slowly rotting in the heart of the City of Angels. Not just by conflict, but also by despair that has shape, smell, and a painful cry in the dead of night. Skid Row, just a few blocks away from the glamorous financial center of Los Angeles, but it feels like a different world. Just a few minutes walk from the gleaming glass office buildings in downtown Los Angeles, but it feels like stepping into another world, one where the American dream has long been extinguished. More than 4,600 people are living cramped in tents and dilapidated vehicles. The streets are occupied as living spaces, sidewalks have become beds, and street corners are where people take care of personal needs due to the lack of safe public restrooms. The tarps that shield from sun and rain have become long-term shelters. But what is even more noteworthy is the absence of security. This area is hardly ever on the regular patrol route anymore. The dangers to safety, health, and mental well-being are all ignored as if they do not exist. Not only Skid Row, East Hollywood, once a dreamland, the backstage of the film capital, is also gradually sinking into despair. This place used to be a refuge for young artists, writers, and independent producers who lived on modest incomes but carried with them a lot of hope. They rented small apartments, worked serving during the day, and created at night. But in recent years, East Hollywood has gradually lost its poetic charm. There are nights when the wind blows through the streets of Los Angeles, and one can see small figures huddled in old cars, cardboard boxes, or under makeshift shelters in Walmart parking lots. Not adults, they are children. No child deserves to grow up like that. But the reality in Los Angeles is harsh. More than 7,500 homeless children are living in uncertainty, most of whom still go to school, still try hard, but do not have a proper home to return to. For many older people, the memory of the economic downturn evokes a sense of deprivation. But at least back then, people could still have hope. Families still gathered together in difficult times. Simple dinners still filled with love. And now? The feeling of coldness was different. It was deeper, more silent, when seeing a child having to hold their younger sibling to sleep in the backseat of a dilapidated car. No laughter, no childhood, only the weariness of being old before their time. We often say, children are the future. We often say, children are the future. But where can a future be nurtured from if from the very beginning they have never had the opportunity to be themselves? But where can a future be nurtured from if from the very beginning they never had the chance to be themselves? Right in the heart of the city dubbed the paradise of the American dream, where people can spend millions to illuminate towering billboards, there are children growing up in darkness, not due to a lack of electricity, but because society has inadvertently extinguished their light. And then, a question that leaves us restless. If one day, our own children are the ones in that car, do we have the courage to call this the America they deserve to grow up in? There are nights when the wind blows through the streets of Los Angeles, and one can see small figures huddled in old cars, cardboard boxes, or under makeshift shelters in Walmart parking lots. Not adults, they are children. No child deserves to grow up like that. But the reality in Los Angeles is harsh. More than 7,500 homeless children are living in uncertainty, most of whom still go to school, still try hard, but do not have a proper home to return to. For many older people, the memory of the economic downturn evokes a sense of deprivation. But at least back then, people could still have hope. Families still gathered together in difficult times. Simple dinners still filled with love. And now? The feeling of coldness was different. It was deeper, more silent, when seeing a child having to hold their younger sibling to sleep in the backseat of a dilapidated car. No laughter, no childhood, only the weariness of being old before their time. We often say, children are the future. We often say, children are the future. But where can a future be nurtured from if from the very beginning they have never had the opportunity to be themselves? But where can a future be nurtured from if from the very beginning they never had the chance to be themselves? Right in the heart of the city dubbed the paradise of the American dream, where people can spend millions to illuminate towering billboards, there are children growing up in darkness, not due to a lack of electricity, but because society has inadvertently extinguished their light. And then, a question that leaves us restless. If one day, our own children are the ones in that car, do we have the courage to call this the America they deserve to grow up in? Perhaps what makes people the saddest is not the breakup, but the feeling that everything used to be so beautiful. Los Angeles used to be a place to start anew, a place where people found themselves in the dazzling lights of dreams. But today, those very lights are illuminating a cold reality. When society develops too quickly, there are people left behind, and never to return. Have you ever wondered if those who once believed in America, those who contributed to this country, now have to sleep on the streets? What awaits the rest of us? If one day you no longer have health, no longer have a job, no longer have anyone to rely on, will this system embrace you with compassion, or will it push you to the margins like what is happening in Los Angeles? And if even the City of Angels has no place for the vulnerable, then is there anywhere in America that can still be called a place to start over? What do you think about the wave of homelessness crisis in Los Angeles and across the United States? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel and stay updated with our latest videos. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. This video is analytical and exploratory in nature, with no intention to attack individuals, organizations, or encourage negative actions. All information is compiled from public sources and reputable press. We are committed to respecting people and valuing empathy. We do not support or oppose any individual or organization. We only reflect what is happening from a sociological perspective. We do not assert that this scenario will definitely happen, but current signs are causing concern among many people. This is not a judgment, but a gentle warning, and the rest let the viewers feel for themselves.